when we think about wars, we shouldn't only think about the two countries directly engaged with wars. We have to think about the broader geopolitical consequences, because there are other countries involved with certain countries that will come to the defense of the countries that we are attacking. So case in point, Vladimir Putin and Russia sees Syria and the Assad regime as a longtime geopolitical ally. So when we attack Syria, we have to worry about how this will impact the United States' relationship with Russia. And at a time when tensions are high between the US and Russia, it's something that we don't want to be doing. We don't want to do anything that could further put us down the path to a hot war with Russia or make our current Cold War between the US and Russia that much worse. Now, the prospect of war alone is troublesome when you consider the amount of innocent civilians that will inevitably die as we bomb their country under this false guise of humanitarianism. But I mean, what's more scary, perhaps, is how one war with a smaller country ultimately pulls us into conflict with another major power that's aligned with it. And I mean, that to me is one of the most terrifying aspects of this story. However, Syria and Russia aren't the only countries that we have to worry about, because Donald Trump is talking very tough on North Korea. And if you bomb North Korea, if you take out the Kim Jong-un regime, a country that's much weaker than the United States, obviously, well, then you have to look at the relationship between China and the United States. China is an ally of North Korea, and Trump is now signaling to us that he may want to get involved with North Korea. So CNN reports a senior White House official issued a dire warning to reporters Tuesday on the state of North Korea's nuclear program, declaring the clock has now run out and all options are on the table, pointing to the failure of successive administrations' efforts to negotiate an end to North Korea's nuclear program. Trump has repeatedly said he plans to urge China to use its influence over North Korea to help halt its nuclear program, but warned in a recent Financial Times interview that he would act to stop North Korea with or without China's cooperation. The senior White House official who issued Tuesday's ominous missive also said North Korea is a matter of urgent interest for the president and the administration as a whole, and emphasized that all options are on the table. Those options could include stepped-up economic sanctions, including against Chinese entities that do business with North Korea, cyber attacks, or military action. So, right before Trump attacks Syria, we get this news. This is the state of international affairs and how the United States has become so bloodthirsty, so nosy, that they can't help themselves. They have to intervene everywhere. Everywhere where there is a humanitarian crisis, they have to get involved. And they're not getting involved for altruistic reasons. They're getting involved, and they'll ultimately make matters worse. They've demonstrated this time and again in Vietnam and Iraq. We are incapable of doing good when we intervene in other countries. There's no such thing as a war for humanitarian reasons. So if we get involved in North Korea, that will be another catastrophe. Now, we should be afraid of how this would impact the United States' relationship with China, because China is very close to North Korea. Now, I don't know why this is the case. They're basically propping up the North Korean economy, which is failing miserably. But I mean, China may be doing this because they share a border with North Korea, so they would probably bear the brunt of the economic consequences of a major refugee crisis. And I mean, although unification of both Koreas would be amazing, and I would love to see that, this is very different than the unification of Germany. And there's a lot of scholars who study Korean politics that think that this would actually be more complex and potentially something that you won't actually be able to do. So trying to get a North Korean democratic regime in place would be very difficult because they have nothing right now. How would you do that? I mean, the amount of aid that it would require would be huge. So this is an issue that China is either putting off or just they don't want to deal with altogether. So I don't know why they're propping up North Korea, but what I do know is they don't want the United States to attack North Korea or become involved with North Korea. Now, this doesn't mean that I condone the disgusting actions of the North Korean regime. And by saying that I don't want war with North Korea, that doesn't imply that I support Kim Jong-un. But what I am saying is that if we take military action against every dictatorship that does something wrong, I mean, that's not the right route to take. We make matters worse oftentimes, and if we start a war with North Korea, more people will die in that war than they are dying now as a result of the North Korean regime. So, especially after Trump started a new war with Syria, we need to be incredibly vigilant. We need to watch him and watch his administration, because it's very clear now that neoconservatives, that the deep state, they've gotten in Donald Trump's ear. He's no longer espousing this non-interventionist rhetoric that he was now during the campaign. And we have to worry about this because Donald Trump is a thin-skinned idiot. He is someone who I think is really malleable. And if there's enough neoconservatives in his ear, he's basically just a puppet to neoconservatives. So this is really scary. I don't want war with Syria or Russia, and I certainly don't want a war with North Korea and China simultaneously. So it's up to all of us reasonable people on the left and the right to put pressure on him, to watch him. Because, Mother of God, I mean, how many wars do we have to start until we realize that the United States is not a hero? We make matters worse. We are not the world police. We are a destructive force in the world. That's not a controversial statement. That's a factual statement. So this is so troubling. We are at such really, really terrifying times right now in human history that we are going to have a lot of scary stories to tell our grandchildren if we're able to make it through this.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.